Reed Stewart says he is not violating any law at all. He said he's doing the same thing that he's done for the past 23 years by asking new residents if they plan to make Tarrant County their permanent home. The only difference now, according to Stewart, is that 18 and 20-year-olds are involved. The controversy arose when a member of Secretary of State Bob Bullock's staff, Randall Wood, questioned the validity of Stewart's follow-up questions to students who listed a dormitory as their residence when registering to vote. Stewart said he is not violating the law by requesting temporary residents to vote in their respective hometowns. Stewart is not asking students to sign any type of affidavit, only an affirmation by phone or letter reassuring the tax collector assessor's office that their registration is of a permanent nature. While there is a great deal of additional work involved, legality of the request apparently has been cleared. Concerning voter registration in the county, a special drive is being waged to register all eligible residents for the April 11th bond election year. Volunteers in the drive are requested to contact the Tarrant County Community Council for work this Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Jim Green, Channel 8 News on the Move in Fort Worth.
The court agenda included an item entitled Appointment of Replacement for Judge Weldon Bradley. The judge had retired last week, and members of the Commissioners Court told me that after a meeting this morning, there was a gentleman's agreement that George McManus of the DA's office would get the nod, although two members of the court had preferred Charles Dickens. Into the courtroom walked Homa Hill, local lawyer and head of the committee responsible for polling the Bar Association for nominations when things like judgeships come vacant. It was obvious from the outset this morning that the court was more nervous than usual. Then, after a number of routine business items, Mr. Hill approached the podium. He reminded the court he had written a letter requesting permission to poll the bar before a replacement for Judge Bradley was selected. There followed perhaps the longest, most embarrassed silence in the history of the Tarrant County Commissioners Court. Commissioner Mabus was first to regain his voice, but then only to say, my, we're unanimous. Nobody is saying anything. It is not uncommon for the court to disregard the recommendations of a bar poll, but it was heretofore unheard of not to at least go through the motions. After some few seconds of friendly hot potato passing between Judge Green and Skeet Richardson, a motion was offered and passed unanimously, hiring George McManus for the job. I asked Commissioner Richardson later why the bar poll had been passed over. He said he hadn't been aware there was one intended, but, he quickly added, the only people who vote in bar polls are the big lawyers downtown, and they don't know any more about picking a criminal judge than we do anyway. I asked Homa Hill, the bar poll man, about the rebuff by the court. He said, just say that I'm not the kind of fellow who forgets. A commissioner told me just moments ago that, in fact, Mr. Hill had come deal-making, saying he wouldn't embarrass the court if they picked his man. They didn't. Jerry Taff, Channel 8 News on the Move, Fort Worth.
The attorneys came into the Supreme Court building in Austin this afternoon prepared to argue the case for 40 minutes apiece. At that time, there were differences of opinion as to whether there would even be a ruling today or not. Earlier, I talked with the Secretary of State's office about the case, and they thought they had a pretty good chance of winning it. Secretary Bob Bullock is out of town, but an assistant told me the highly activist Secretary of State was expecting a favorable ruling in the case. He has put the state in the somewhat anomalous position of being both plaintiff and defendant in the same suit. The actual defendant, of course, is Comptroller Robert Calvert, who has steadfastly refused to release money to pay for a primary election.
It's simply a matter of law. There is no money appropriated for that purpose. Heretofore, the primary has been carried on by the candidate paying a filing fee. But some court ruled that as being unconstitutional. So they had no way. So the state needs to pay for it. And that's what they're trying to do. But there is no money appropriated for that purpose. So I'm the one that writes the checks to pay the money out. I can't pay the money out unless there is legal provision for it.
Exactly when the court's decision will be made is unclear right now, but the time between now and May 6th, the primary election date, grows ever shorter. Phil Reynolds, Channel 8 News on the Move, in Austin.
Nobody seems to want to tell Channel 8 News just who owns those two Lockheed JetStars that are housed in hangar number 1 here at Redbird Airport. The company leasing that hangar, the Executive Aircraft Company of Dallas, says they've sublet the facility to Lockheed Georgia, the manufacturers of that airplane. Lockheed Georgia, in response to questions from Channel 8 News by long distance this afternoon, told us their affairs are their affairs. Information from reliable sources in Dallas indicate, however, that 2 jets came to Dallas in March of last year and were put in this hangar. They landed in darkness after the Redbird Tower had closed at 10 p.m. The planes have reportedly not been out of that hangar until the 14th of February of this year, when one of them was gassed up at the field. Our sources further indicate that the planes left the field early in the morning during the same week that Howard Hughes made his move from the Bahamas to Central America. No one saw them return to Dallas. We can only say that we have seen the planes inside the hangar. The president of the Executive Aircraft Corporation, the company that is leasing this hangar number 1 from the city of Dallas, is not available for comment today. The Lockheed Georgia company has told us that the affair is none of our business. And Howard Hughes, well, I, like you, have seen hide nor hair of him. This is Malcolm Landess at Redbird Airport for Channel 8 News on the Move.
The money theme in today's council meeting began with the first ordinance to be considered, an ordinance authorizing the sale of $112 million in joint revenue bonds for the Dallas-Fort Worth Regional Airport. The council approved the sale unanimously and without debate. The council also authorized the sale of 2 tracts of land on Browder and Young Streets in downtown Dallas to the Federal Reserve Bank. The price the city will get for the property, $3 million. A short time later, the council agreed to spend $250,000 as the city's yearly share of a regional promotion campaign conducted by the North Texas Commission. The council also handled each of these transactions without debate, but there was some opposition. On one money matter, the council's acceptance of a $50,000 grant to plan the city's implementation of a newly awarded multi-million-dollar federally financed anti-crime program.
Well, my opposition to it really was, I should think that we need more preventive means in this thing, more probation officers, more psychiatric counselors, and but worst of all, there's not even a black on the Criminal Justice Council, and this is the group that will make this study, and it's going to be largely in the minority areas, and an impact program of this sort without input from a black member of the council can be very meaningless.
Allen says he'll recommend the name of a black to be added to the Criminal Justice Council when members of the City Council meet in an executive session Wednesday morning. Jack Hill, Channel 8 News on the Move.
I think it's quite apparent that we have no choice but to field a young club, except for 1 or 2 positions. Why, we've got a young player that has played only 1 year or hasn't even played in the big leagues. And the emphasis, of course, at this point has to be youth in our ball club. It's kind of unusual, isn't it, to have as many positions in a competitive status at this time? Well, I would say it is, and it just shows that the complete change of character that this club has had in the last 3 years. And I think there's only 2 players that are on the club that was here 3 years ago, and It just so happens that all of these kids are arriving at the same time, and I think we have 5 or 6 of our first draft choices here right now. And I admit that that could be a year away, possibly 2 in some cases. But all in all, we're coming close to getting the best young talent that this club has had since its expansion. And of course, Ted, that's exemplified, I would guess, in the trade that you made just recently when Denny McLean went to Oakland. You've got another #1 draft choice in Stanhouse. That's right, and that was certainly one of the factors. We felt that at this stage of the game that the Rangers have to be on the build, and it was a case of us getting 2 young pitchers, and we have great reports on Stanhouse and good reports on Panther, and we just felt that now was the time to make that kind of a trade. You know, you've got some tough decisions coming up between now and April 6th in terms of personnel. I should say so, and it's going to be fun, and also very, very important that we make as good a choice as we can so that we can get started off. But, you know, looking at it another way, that even if we don't pick the right guys to start with, it's just a matter of an hour, a call, 2 days, and they're in the lineup. So all is not lost. You know, a lot of times you got to consider, is this young fella better off sitting on the bench in our ball club, even though he's so close to playing but isn't, or is he better off going to the minor leagues and playing every day? I am certainly convinced in my own mind that you've got to play him. Single most important thing a young player has to do is play.
Well, we're practicing every day to win, and this is what we plan to do. And we don't have any apprehensions, although we feel that Wheatley will have the edge to a certain extent, because they've been down to, this will be the 5th time down to the state, and they won't feel the same as we do. We'll probably feel a little shaky being the first time in the state, and they are a team that's been there this will be the 5th year in a row, and actually they are a little more set for state tournament play than we are.
Well,
being the first time.
Yeah, you said earlier in the talking that you played the team, twice this year? Did you have any problems?
Early in preseason, we played them, I believe it was November the 15th and November 29th, 22nd or somewhere in there. And they beat us down there, and we beat them here. So this will be a showdown, I suppose, for us.
Very enthused and very happy to be here. I'm with a great organization, so you know, it's going to be a great experience, I think, for myself. And I think in some way I'm going to be able to help this team, you know, go to the Super Bowl again next year.
Dallas has had a lot of success in the last couple of years drafting running backs #1. And this year they drafted #1 and #2 running backs. So what do you think about this?
Well, I'm not too sure. Well, I think, you know, that, you know, it's going to help. It's going to help a lot. You know, like the 4 of us, like the 5 of us, I guess, Dwayne and Calvin, myself and Bobby and Garrison, Walt, you know, we're all going to be pushing one another, you know, trying to get that starting position. And I feel this is going to help the team out in the long run.
something like that. It's okay. It's involved with 4 times.
James Martinez.